Let's bring in ABC News political contributor and former Trump administration official Sarah Isgur, along with Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, the former Democratic mayor of Baltimore, and ABC News legal contributor Kimberly Whaley for more on this. Kim, how damning is this new evidence showing Trump and his inner circle kind of plotted ahead of time to have supporters march to the Capitol?
Arguably, there's already sufficient evidence. And of course, this is for the Justice Department, not for Congress. But as far as what we know, for things like incitement of an insurrection or obstruction of an official proceeding, there is also pending seditious conspiracy charges against, say, the head of the Oath Keepers. That's already out there. So I think this evidence bears on that question. That is, did Trump, was he engaged in a meeting of the minds? It doesn't have to be an express agreement, but was there an understanding? Was there coordination to show up on January 6th and take steps to illegally overthrow the government? And I think yesterday what we saw, as Rachel said in her piece, was evidence that people knew there'd be violence. Donald Trump knew in advance what he was doing or potentially bringing these people there, and that he planned to see some real action that day. And we also saw leaked from Mother Jones last night, Steve Bannon on a call that private call basically said the same thing. Tomorrow's going to be a big deal. Trump's going to try to take the election. I'm paraphrasing, but all of that goes to criminal contempt for the conspiracy side of things.
Now, Sarah, the other key aspect of this hearing seemed to be Pat Cipollonis' testimony describing this contentious meeting in the Oval Office about a proposal to seize voting machines without any evidence. How damning is that?
Well, again, you have to think of this in several different buckets. One, you have the legal bucket that Kim just spoke about. I agree and disagree maybe slightly. I don't think that they have gotten over the line for what the Department of Justice would need to bring incitement charges versus the free speech issue that a president's going to have at a rally to be able to say, come on January 6th. I think they made some progress last week with Cassidy Hutchinson, maybe a little yesterday, but probably not a lot on the legal front. On the political front, however, unquestionably yesterday's testimony was awful for the former president. You have his campaign manager saying that the president is responsible for the loss of life on January 6th. His communications director saying, no, it's not. And him saying, yes, Kimberly, it is. And Pat Cipollone, as you said, a huge win for the committee to be able to spend that many hours talking to the president's former White House counsel. Pat Cipollone's there for all of this in the run-up to January 6th and January 6th itself, as Cassidy Hutchinson testified last week. Now, we only heard little pieces of his testimony yesterday. I expect we will hear more in the coming days from the committee of what Pat Cipollone said. But absolutely, this is a big step forward for the committee and a big step back for former President Trump.
And Kim, I want to go back to you on that, because it's one thing to say the president told people to march to the Capitol, that they planned ahead of time to have people march to the Capitol, that extremist groups heard that and came to the rally. And it's another thing to say that the president and his inner circle plotted with these extremist groups to have them march to the Capitol and attack and storm the Capitol. So where does this fall, both in terms of these political hearings, but also for the legality of it?
Right. So the difference between civil liability and criminal liability often comes down to this idea of intent. And there's been a lot of people floating around, well, there's not sufficient evidence that Donald Trump knowingly sought to overturn the election. I think Liz Cheney in her opening statements kind of shot that down. Listen, this is not a child. This willful blindness defense doesn't apply here. And oftentimes in criminal cases, you don't necessarily have the smoking gun, but we don't just talk. We don't just have his speech. So if it were just that speech, then maybe I would agree that there's potentially a problem. But we have tons of evidence that's already made public that he took many steps to overturn the election, not just 60 lawsuits, but trying to get fake slates of electors, the January 18th or the December 18th meeting where he was trying entertaining the idea of illegally seizing voting machines. I mean, this is a man who tried to do it legally, then tried to do it illegally, and Mike Pence refused, Bill Barr refused. Everyone said, listen, we are not going to comply with that. Pat Cipollone said no evidence, and it violates the rule of law. And that's when I think what we saw yesterday is there was kind of this connection between these militia groups that were interested independently, the Oath Keepers, in a paramilitary state, in taking over the government, and Donald Trump saying, okay, this is, and I'm paraphrasing as well, but the theory is this is the last chance. This is the way to use violence and actually stop the January 6th counting of the Electoral College votes.
Now, Stephanie, we also heard more about that legal strategy to have the then Vice President, Mike Pence, overturn the election on January 6th, including a meeting attended by several Republican lawmakers. What questions do you think need to be answered about their involvement, and what consequences, if any, could come from that?
I'm really hopeful that they'll find some more connective tissue, some more emails, some more writing, some more documents from the archives that will put these elected officials in the box where they cannot continue to say, I don't recall. I'm so exhausted of that answer. But at the end of the day, I don't think this is going to end up being a legal question. I think this is the question of public opinion, just like with Watergate. It wasn't a criminal case. It was Republicans being overwhelmed with the reality, or, smacked in the face with what happened, and they had to address the situation. And, the challenge we have in 2022 is while we're on top of this and we're focused on this, the conservative media is focused on a toddler cursing out police officers in Minnesota. I mean, they're just not focused on it. So we have a huge hurdle to overcome to make the conservatives or the Republicans, in the public, in their homes, think that this is a big deal, because they're pretty much over it.
All right, Stephanie Rawlings-Blake, Sarah Isgur, Kim Whaley, thank you all.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.